2008, I was a junior at East High School, and I attended a program called KCC, or King Career Center, for those of you that do not know. It is a tech school where you could spend the first half or the second half of your day, your high school day, and you'll be learning about a tech school career that you are interested in. And the school I chose was public safety, and it basically taught us the ins and outs of being a police officer, being a correctional officer, or the penal system and the things of that manner. And what we did one day was we went to the Anchorage jail, and at the Anchorage jail, I met hundreds of people there, and about about half of them, every other one of the persons I met there were in for a drug-related offense and non-violent drug-related offense, whether it was from possession or possession with intent to sell, or selling to an undercover cop. Like the ones that I've seen were all non-violent. It was really shocking to me. It made me realize that people out there like are committing these crimes that aren't really crimes. I mean, yeah, they're supplying a good and service to somebody who's going to eventually want it, and they're eventually going to find it. And it's unfortunate as that is. I mean, people are going to find what they want one way or another, and these people are the ones that are supplying it to them, or even just like holding on. Like if they're using marijuana recreationally and they have a dime bag in their pocket, I mean, they're gonna go to jail. Like post legalization, they would have went to jail for it, and now it's like that with crack and with cocaine, and it's sad to see people's lives getting ruined over a small misdemeanor, should be misdemeanor offense, or something that you would be needing to do community service for, not jail time. It's costing us money. The economy is getting torn apart by this. The massive amounts of people we have in the penal system, and it's affecting their families and their lives, of course, because like once you put a person in jail, they're not going to be the same person when they come out 5, 10, 15 years later. They're going to be, depending on where they're at, they could be a hardened criminal by then, and they could be a constant offender going in and out monthly or yearly. Like whenever they get out, they'll be back in a month later or a year later. It's a sad portion to see. And 50% of the sentenced inmates in a federal prison on September 30th, 2014 were serving time for drug-related offenses. And that little quote there was from drugwarfacts.com, and that website basically gives a description, or states out the facts that what America is doing is tragically wrong, and the way we're penalizing people for the drug-related offenses is terribly wrong. And I couldn't agree more with them. It's really, really sad to see like people's lives go to waste. And not only that, but the economy. Like they say, the 3,000 or $31,286 a year per prisoner in a state penitentiary. And if we have 2,058 or 258,974 inmates in the state penitentiary system that are drug-related offenders, if you do the math on that, that's $8,100,000,000 each year on just drug-related offenders, non-violent drug-related offenders. And that's also from drugwarfacts.com. And it's just really sad to see like that we're blowing that much money that we keep putting use towards like schools or even education to these people that are being punished. Instead of throwing them in jail, letting them rot, give them education, teach them the ways to get a better living. We could be doing so much more things with this money than just throwing away and locking away the key. So there's so many ways you can punish somebody without actually sending them to jail. There's alternative sentencing. I mean, that's a huge one. You can give them community service, put them on probation, make them do hard labor. There's so many different ways you can do it. Find them, for instance, like we can make money out of it. All those options are making money out of it. If we use community service, that's providing a service back to the community that they stole from. Like by supplying drugs, they're stealing from the community by supplying drugs, and they're giving it back to them by doing community service, whether it's working in a cafe or sweeping up the streets. And I feel like we don't do enough of that. Like our first instinct is to jump to prison or to jail time, and it's really sad to see that. And there's so many better ways we can do it. And the congestion of the jails that we have now is just outrageous. Like in 2004, the U.S. had a state population, or a prison state population, of 1,233,211, and that is just a mind-boggling number. Just if you think about it, we hold 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prison population. I mean, it's unrealistic how many people we have in prison, and for drug-related offenses nonetheless. And that was also for drug war facts as well. And so I want to talk about what other countries are doing, what their policies are. In Portugal, for instance, they have just revamped their drug program. They have they're finding people found guilty of possessing small amounts of drugs are sent to a panel consisting of psychologists, social workers, and legal advisors for appropriate treatment instead of jailing. And that is unbelievable that they're doing that, and we can't do that. I mean, that almost makes more sense than sending them to jail, because by sending them to jail, we're just slapping their hand. We're not giving them the help they need. If they're addicted to drugs, we're letting them just go in there, find the ways of bringing it into the jail, and then going back out and redoing it again. You know, it's a never-ending cycle. European prisons. So here's a quote from the New York Times. Germany and the Netherlands rely heavily upon alternatives to prison, including fines, probation, and other community service programs, and they impose much shorter sentences when there is no alternative to incarceration. While the average state prison's term in the United States is about 3 years, more than 90% of Dutch sentences and 75% of German sentences are no more than 12 months. There's no reason why we can't do that either. I mean, because what you're going to learn in 12 months being away from your family for a year, you're going to learn this. You're not going to learn any more being away from them for 5 years. It's just degradation once you pass that 1 year mark. There's no more punishment to it. It's just cruelty. It's a cruelty thing to do, like when you're just using drugs that you're like addicted to. Imprisoning causes hardened criminals. There's almost no doubt about that. People that go into jail that occasionally smoke weed or crack or cocaine, if depending on how bad of a prison sentence they got, then they could be sent to minimum, low, or maximum security prisons. And the higher you are up on that chain of prison systems, the more you're gonna be reluctant to go back and back and back. And part of the hardening criminals part and part of the cruelty punishment part is these individual cases. Fate Vincent Winslow was a man that got sent to jail for selling $20 worth of weed to an undercover cop. He got life sentence, no parole, because he had 3 other non-violent criminal misdemeanor offenses, and he went to jail for life. He lost his life because of this 3 strikes you're out rule that was brought on by the war on crime back in the 60s. And it is really sad to see that people are just getting locked away and dying in prison because of a small misdemeanor drug offense. And that's not the only case. There's hundreds of them out there. But another one is Tyrone Taylor. He was 41 years old when he got thrown in jail for selling $20 worth of crack to a cop. This guy was homeless, and he was just trying to make a living, like trying to put food in his mouth, and this was the only way he thought he could do it. And then he got, for the same rule, 3 strikes you're out. He went to jail for life, never came out. And things like this are just redundant. They're just happening all over the place, and it's something we need to get a hold of and understand that we can't be doing this. This is not a way of life. We can't live this way and expect people to come back out of prison being healthy and an able-bodied citizen. It just doesn't work that way. So economists Jesse Shapiro and Keith Chen did a case study, and their case study was basically just finding out if people are being hardened by prisons, and their conclusion is yes, they are. They labeled people between numbers, and numbers 0 through 5 were criminals that went to jail for drug possession, and they went to minimum security prisons. Criminals that haven't been convicted of any other crime, and they went to a minimum security prison for their offense. Uh, Numbers from 6 to 7, they went to a low security prison because they've been to jail before, and 7 and above are in maximum security prison because they've been to jail multiple times. And they pulled some numbers, and they basically took all the 6 and 7s and put them in a category and watched them more the closest, because they're the ones that were involved in the prison system that was not minimum, but it wasn't maximum either. So they were curious to see where they would bounce around to, and there was such a higher recidivism rate between those low security inmates than the minimum security inmates. The minimum security inmates, there was almost no turnaround, and the low security inmates, there was a much greater turnaround, a surprisingly greater turnaround than the lower, or than the minimum. And that's probably due to the prison environment and the people that they're being put around. Because if you put somebody in a group of people, make them live there for 5 years with different personalities, their personalities are eventually going to become one and the same, or they're going to either clash or become criminals together. It's almost inevitable. And the last part is war on crime. And war on crime, it has to be done away with. Like, it's basically sending away our family members away for life. Like, we went from having one of the lower prison sentence rates in the world to having the highest by far, and we're only second, and the only one below us is Russia. Like, when it comes to the second lowest on the chart is Russia, and they have a terrible prison system. And what's that say about ours? We over prison so much that it's time to revamp it. I mean, criminalizing drug use is bad for the economy, and it's bad for citizens. It's taking away our money, and it's taking away our citizens that could be beneficial, or we could treat them and make them like an actual contributing citizen. And the only way to fix this problem, it really is to spread the knowledge and do something about it. I mean, we need our prison systems revamped. We need our judicial system revamped. There's so many things we need to do that we haven't done yet that needs to be accomplished. Thank you for listening.